Still have a whole bunch of candles to light up here before we get started. So if you haven't gotten a chance to do that, or you want to light some more, feel free to come up and light some. Again, we want them all lit before the service starts. All right, well, welcome to our Good Friday service. I see a lot of the same faces that were here last night. And so for many of us, this is a continuation of the story that we started telling last night of the final hours of Christ's life before going to the cross and of the cross. This is a somber remembrance. This is a sad story we tell tonight. It is happy. It's the happy stuff comes on. Tonight we try to get ourselves in the mindset of the disciples, though, on the night of Christ's crucifixion, who did not know that Sunday was coming. In their eyes, all hope was lost. It's through the saving power of Christ's death and resurrection that we are made right with God. It's not by any work of our own, but in what we relive tonight and the story that we tell. It's in all that Jesus does on the cross for each and every one of us that we find salvation, grace. We put our faith in the saving power of Jesus through his death on the cross and his resurrection from the dead. Can you hear me now? As we walk through the story tonight, we'll remember how Jesus was betrayed by one of his own. He was beaten and whipped. He was spat on and mocked. He was given a crown of thorns and a sign that read, King of the Jews. He was given sour wine to drink, and he was nailed to the cross. And silence is extra important tonight. It's hard to be silent. We want to think about happy things. We want to tell happy stories. We want to fill the empty space with noise and words. But let's try to resist that tonight. Let's try to put our minds in the minds of the disciples these final hours of Jesus' life. Let's let the story that we tell tonight sink down into our bones. I think if we do, it'll make what we celebrate on Sunday morning even more special. Though silence isn't easy for us, we don't either. Please sit and listen. And as we go through the service, as it gets darker in here and we blow out candles, at the end of the service, please wait until the lights by the doors have been turned back on, and then you're free to sit as long as you want to, or you can leave whenever you're ready. But we ask that you, when you do leave, you continue to maintain silence. And when we come back on Sunday, may we enter with that same silence. There will be a time to say hallelujah on Sunday morning. But let's try to get in the mindset of the crucifixion and all that happened on that night. Before we get started, we have another refrain tonight, another song to learn. It's another easy one. And again, I'm juggling all of my stuff. I will go ahead and sing it one time, like I did last night, and then we can all sing it together. And then wherever we see refrain, throughout the order of worship. We will repeat this like this. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Easy enough? Let's all sing it together. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. All right, well, will you all join me in the call to worship? I will read the light print, and you can read the bold. Who has believed what we have heard? To whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Surely he has borne our infirmities and carried our diseases. Yet we account him stricken, struck down by God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. Upon him was the punishment that made us whole, and by his bruises we are healed.
When they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. You will all fall away, Jesus told them, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have risen, I will go ahead of you. Peter declared, even if all fall away, I will not. I tell you the truth, Jesus answered. Today, yes, tonight, before the rooster crows twice, you yourself will disown me 3 times. But Peter insisted emphatically, even if I have to die with you, I will never disown you. And all the others said the same. Called Gethsemane, and Jesus said to his disciples, sit here while I pray. He took Peter, James, and John along with him, and he began to be deeply distressed and troubled, overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. He said to them, stay here and keep watch. Going a little farther, he fell to the ground and prayed that if possible, the hour might pass from him. Abba, Father, he said, everything is. Take this cup from me, yet not what I, but what you will. Then he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. Simon, he said to Peter, are you asleep? Could you not keep watch for 1 hour? Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak. Once more he went away and prayed the same thing. Again found them sleeping because their eyes were heavy. They did not know what to say to him. Returning the 3rd time, he said to them, are you still sleeping and resting? Enough. The hour has come. Look, the Son of Man is betrayed. Rise, let us go. Here comes my betrayer.
Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into kingdom.
Just as he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, appeared. With him was a crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests, the teachers of the law, and the elders. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him and lead him away under guard. Going in, Rabbi, and kissed him. One of those standing near drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Am I leading a rebellion, said Jesus, that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I was with you, teaching in the temple courts, and you did not arrest me. But the scriptures must be fulfilled. Then everyone deserted him and fled.
Jesus, remember me when you come into. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
They took Jesus to the high priest, and all the chief priests, elders, and teachers of the law came together. Peter followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest. There he sat with the guards and warmed himself at the fire. The chief priests and the whole Sanhedrin were looking for evidence against Jesus so that they could put him to death, but they did not find any. Many testified falsely against him, but their statements did not agree. Then some stood up and gave this false testimony against him. We heard him say, I will destroy this man-made temple, and in 3 days will build another, not made by men. Yet even then, their testimony did not agree. Then the high priest stood up before them and asked Jesus, Are you not going to answer? What is this testimony these men are bringing against you? But Jesus remained silent and gave no answer. Again, the high priest asked him, Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed One? I am, said Jesus. And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. The high priest tore his clothes. Why do we need any more witnesses? He asked. You have heard the blasphemy. They all condemned him as worthy of death. Then some began to spit at him. They blindfolded him, struck him with their fists, and said, Prophesy! And the guards took him and beat him.
Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, when you come into your kingdom.
While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servants, when she saw Peter warming himself, she looked closely at him. "You were also," she said. But he denied it. "I don't know or understand what you're talking about," he said, and went out into the entryway. When the servant girl saw him there, she said again to those standing around, "This fellow is one of them." Again, he denied it. For a while, those standing near said to Peter, "Surely you are one of them, for you are a Galilean." He began to call down curses on himself, and he swore to them, "I don't know this man you're talking about." Immediately, the rooster crowed the second time. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken to him. "Before the rooster crows twice, you will disown me 3 times." And he broke down and wept.
Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
Very early in the morning, the chief priests with the elders, the teachers of the law, and the whole Sanhedrin reached a decision. They bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate. "Are you the king of..." "Yes, it is as you say," Jesus. The chief priests accused him of many things. So again, Pilate asked him, "Aren't you going to answer? See how many things they are accusing you of?" But Jesus still made no reply, and Pilate was amazed. Now it was the custom at the feast to release a prisoner whom the people requested. A man called Barabbas was in prison with the insurrectionists who had committed murder in the uprising. The crowd came up and asked Pilate to do for them what he usually did. "Do you want me to release to you the King of the Jews?" asked Pilate, knowing it was out of envy that the chief priests had handed Jesus over to him. But the chief priests stirred up the crowd to have Pilate release Barabbas instead. "What shall I do then with the one you call the King of the Jews?" Pilate asked them. "Crucify him," they shouted. "Why? What crime has he committed?" asked Pilate. But they shouted all the louder, "Crucify him!" Wanting to satisfy the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them. He had Jesus flogged and handed him over.
Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
the soldiers led Jesus away into the palace, that is, the praetorium, and called together the whole company of soldiers. They put a purple robe on him, then twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on him. And they began to call out to him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Again and again they struck him on the head with a staff and spit on him. Falling on their knees, they paid homage to him. And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him out to crucify him. A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry. They brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. Then they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him, dividing up his clothes. They cast lots to see what each would get.
Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
It was the third hour when they crucified him. The written notice of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." They crucified 2 robbers with him, one on his right and one on his left. Those who passed by hurled insults at him, shaking their heads and saying, "So, you who are going to destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, come down from the cross and save yourself." In the same way, the chief priests and the teachers of the law mocked him among themselves. "He saved others," they said, "but he can't save himself. Let this Christ, this King of Israel, come down now from the cross, that we may see and believe." Those crucified with him also heaped insults on him.
Jesus, remember.
At the 6th hour, darkness came over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, "My God, My God, why have you forsaken me? When some of those standing near heard this, they said, Listen, he's calling Elijah. One man ran, filled a sponge with wine vinegar, put it on to Jesus to drink. Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to take him down, he said.
Jesus, remember me, your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Well, as I was thinking about the service tonight and trying to think about what what I'm about to say, I was reminded of a story that my granddad told me, and I've never shared this story with you all. But I called my pawpaw up this afternoon, and I said, "Remember that story you told me about the time you bought a horse with a bike?" He said, "Yeah." So I said, "Could you remind me of that story again?" Story again. He told me about how he was riding his bike one afternoon and he passed the neighbor's house. The neighbor boy was out by the pasture. They nodded at each other, and my granddad noticed the horse out in his pasture. It was a little colt, about a year old. My pawpaw said to the boy, "It's out there." The boy looked at him and said, "I'll trade him to you for that bike." And my pawpaw said, "You serious?" He said, "Yeah." So my granddad said, "All right, I'll give you my bike, you give me that horse." He said, "But I would feel a lot better if you went in and talked to your dad about it." So the boy said, okay. He went inside, he talked to his dad, they came out, and the dad said, "You want to trade that bike for this horse?" My pawpaw said, "Yeah." Said, "Okay." He said, "But he's never been rode before. You're not going to be able to put a rope on him. You're going to have to ride the mare home, and the colt will just have to follow." So my papa said, "Okay, I can do that." So he hopped on the horse, started on the way home, and the little colt followed. He took both of them into a stable, turned around real quick, and put the mare out and locked the colt in. And he said he thought the colt was just going to tear the stable down. But he took the mare home, and the easy part, the hard part, was breaking the colt. He says that he worked and worked and worked with that colt out in his own pasture. He said his mom stood there at the door watching, biting her nails the whole time, thinking she was going to witness him kill himself on this horse. He said he couldn't count the number of times that the horse threw him before he finally broke this horse. Eventually he did break the horse, and he said it was probably the best horse he had ever had. You know, horses have a lot of parallels with people. You know, just like a horse has a will, and that will needs to be broken. You know, we have our own wills as well. We know from reading Scripture that God gives us free will, the ability to make decisions, the ability to choose where we go and what we do. You know, parents spend a lot of time trying to break their kids' wills. If you're a parent, you know what I'm talking about. I've witnessed my sister and my sisters-in-law and my brothers-in-law work with their 2-year-olds, trying to break those wills because they've got some strong wills. My nephew Dawson, my sister in Mississippi, I was talking to her last night, and she said that Dawson's latest thing is, he says, I can't. Everything his mama tells him to do, he says, I can't. I can't, Mama. Boys, I can't. Dawson, come eat. I can't. Dawson, put the phone down. I can't. As we grow up, we're given more freedom to follow our own wills, do as we please, and less having to do what our parents dictate for us. We become adults. We earn freedom and independence. And the older we get, the more it becomes our fault if our wills lead us down the wrong path. Sometimes, like horses, we have to learn that there is a power greater than us that has his own will for our life. Where we ought to go, what we ought to do. He has his own plan, his own desire for our lives. And sometimes, like horses, the older we get, the more set in our ways we become, and the harder it is to break us. The story we remember tonight, the story of Jesus and all that Jesus did for us. We see that Jesus perfected the art of being broken. Jesus perfected the art of brokenness, we might say. Jesus was completely obedient, totally obedient to the will of God, even to the point of death. Everyone he loved, even when he was beat, spat upon, mocked, ridiculed, even when he was stripped of his clothes, even when the crown of thorns was placed on his skull, even when he was nailed to the cross, he was totally, completely, with every breath and every moment of his life, obedient to the will of God. And he calls you and me to the same kind of obedience. That's what carrying our cross means. The way of the cross, we might say, is the way of total obedience to God. And all too often, we, like Adam and Eve in the garden, we reach out for what doesn't belong to us, and we take for our own selves what doesn't belong to us. We choose to do what we think is best for our lives. We choose what's most aligned with our will rather than the will of God. And need the events that we read about tonight. That's why we need to remember this story that we read tonight. That's why we need what happened on the cross. We've all chosen our own paths. We've all chosen to go our own way rather than go the way that God would have us go. And we need to return to God's path. Return to the Lord, you might say. You've heard that phrase a good bit over the past couple weeks. We all need to return to the Lord. The truth is, you can buy a horse with a bicycle, but the horse still needs to be broken. The good news that we read about tonight is this: you have been bought with a price. But the challenge is, have you been broken?
My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me? From the words of my groaning. Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but find no rest. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our ancestors trusted, delivered them. To you they cried and were saved. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. But I am a worm and not human, scorned by others and despised by the people. All who see me mock at me. They make mouths at me. They shake their heads. Commit your cause to the Lord. Let him deliver. Let him rescue the one in whom he delights. Yet it was you who took me from the womb. You kept me safe at my mother's breast. On you I was cast from my birth, and since my mother bore me, you have been my God. Do not be far from me, for trouble is near, and there is no one to help. Many bulls encircle me, strong bulls of Bashan surround me. They open wide their mouths at me like a ravening and roaring lion. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted within my breast. My mouth is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue sticks to my jaws. You lay me in the dust of death. For dogs are all around me, a company of evildoers encircles me. My hands and feet have shriveled. I can count all my bones. They stare and gloat over me and divide my clothes amongst themselves, and for my clothing they cast lots. But you, O Lord, do not be far away. Come quick to my aid. Deliver my soul from the sword, my life from the power of the dog. Save me from the mouth of the lion.
With a loud cry, Jesus breathed his. So Joseph bought some linen cloth, took down the body, wrapped it in the linen, and placed it in a tomb cut out of rock. Then he rolled a stone against the entrance.